Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast, Conversations with Silicon Valley's Creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates. This episode of the Content Magazine podcast is brought to you by Bonfire, a Silicon Valley digital agency building elevated websites for ambitious brands. Find out more about Bonfire at bonfire.com.
Hello.
Today we talk with Priya Das. She's the co-founder and chief programming officer for Mosaic America. Hey Priya, this is Daniel. How are you doing?
Hey Daniel, good to hear from you. I'm doing well.
Yeah,
how are you?
I'm doing all right. I imagine with the Mosaic America Festival coming up on the 26th and 27th, you are probably a little bit in the last stretch of organization and getting things ready, right? So a little stressed?
Yes, actually, I should actually take back the fact that I said I'm doing well, or define it as a bundle of anxiety and excitement, and a lot of, variables that some are known and some are unknown. So but it's good trouble.
Right.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? And doing something like these kind of events for the community, I mean, there's definitely stress that comes with it, because it's busyness and a lot of figuring out the details. But also it's probably kind of a joyful pain. I guess it's like birth.
No, yeah, it is. Yes, since you did bring up birth, what they do tell you when you're pushing the baby out is this will end.
Right.
And so that is definitely something to kind of look forward to,
Yeah.
All of it will kind of culminate on the 26th and 27th, and you're going to get to see the product of your labor.
Right.
And so that is definitely the end goal here.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like in child labor, then they always say, like, after the baby's born, the joy of that, you forget the pain. So hopefully.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So we did this for the first time less than a year ago, and we're doing it again, and for triple the amount of time. And, so that has brought its own challenges. But what I love, Daniel, I must confess, is this whole part about doing something that nobody else has done before.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? And
yeah.
Not that nobody else has put on festivals, right? I'm sure there are many who have, but not quite. We have it as a team at Mosaic America, and not quite like the way we're doing it, kind of inviting all of Silicon Valley, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the fun part of it, figuring it out.
That's cool. Yeah. So I tell you what, I was originally going to ask you first more about kind of like your life and how you were involved and are involved in the arts, and then get to about Mosaic America. But let's go ahead and start. Let's start at the end, and then we'll work backwards, kind of like one of those kind of stories instead. So Mosaic America, why don't you explain exactly the goal and mission of Mosaic America? And then I think, so tell us what specifically, and you're a co-founder of the organization.
I'm the co-founder and the chief programming officer of Mosaic America.
And Mosaic America does what?
We bring together intercultural programming with the sole purpose of building community. And so, I know I like the idea of kind of sort of starting at the end, but, at the beginning of the end, which is 2015, there was a lot of national rhetoric that was all about othering and making America great in ways that we felt, Usha Srinivasan, the co-founder, along with me, and I felt that weren't representative of the common everyday people on the street. Right. And we were heavily into the arts by then, and we said, you know what, let's conduct a massive social and artistic and creative impact and innovative experiment, right?
Yeah.
What if we use the arts as a way to bring together people who would normally not mingle, right? Let's see if there is an appetite for it. And so, and all of it was born of a vision of America that we were seeing that the national rhetoric seemed to not see, right? So we were convinced that if we just put out a call, there would be more people like us who would want to experience it and want to be a part of it, right? So in 2016, our first show was actually called Mosaic America. The organization itself was had a different name. It was Sangam Arts,
Right.
but our first show was called Mosaic America.
Mm-hmm.
And we put it together in like 9 weeks, and we had 120 artists on one stage across 12 different cultures.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part of that very first show was that the diversity in the audience was reflected in the diversity on stage.
Yeah.
And typically, what happens is you get invited to, let's say, a Diwali party or a Dia de los Muertos event, or, so there's the diverse audience sort of going to a specific community event, right?
Right. Yeah.
But so our event was different in the sense that there was diversity in the audience and the same diversity on stage.
Yeah.
And so, we kind of grew up from there and from that experience, because that told us that not only is there a tremendous appetite for this experience, people, I think we were addressing a need of belonging.
Yeah.
All of us are looking to kind of feel at home in our skin, in our apartment, in our building, in our block, in our city, county, nation, whatever, right? We were all kind of wanting to belong and feel at home. And we felt like that is what Mosaic America addresses. And so the way we chose to do it was by engaging with the diverse arts and culture all around us to cultivate inclusion, and then definitely to build belonging.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the origin story of Mosaic America. So we work year long, and we work with, at any given Mosaic event, you'll see anywhere from 2 to 10. At a smaller event, you'll see anywhere from 2 to 10 different cultures being represented.
Yeah.
And then all of that culminates in our festival, which is now an annual festival. I do want to kind of thump my own chest a bit. Our inaugural festival last year, the city of San Jose actually, awarded us the Cornerstone Creative Impact Award.
Yeah.
For all of the work that we've been doing so far, and then especially for the festival. So I'm very, very
it was great
humbled
too.
and honored.
Just the kind of like the great thing that happens is that you get to see the uniqueness of each kind of like cultural art and performance. But in some ways, you also see the similarities, right? You start to see even some of the dance moves, or some of the tones and definitely themes and stories, right? What was something in that you've seen as bringing kind of like different kind of like ethnic art experiences together? What's something that that's kind of surprised you about that?
What surprises me continuously is that nobody ever thinks to look up from the community that they feel like they belong to, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So most of us, right, we when you talk community, right, we always have a label that goes with it. So either it's racial, right, it's either Mexican, Portuguese, Indian origin, some other, or it's arts, or it's technologists, or it's photographers, or it's there's so many different ways in which community gets defined.
Like the subgroups that are interest groups, and the tribes, if you will.
And once you found your place, right, you are consumed by it, right? And we all need that. We all need that so that we can tether ourselves to a point of strength, right?
Yeah,
we all
belonging,
need that.
connection, community, friends. Yeah.
So, but what, if you kind of take a 50,000 view level, a level view of that, what that ends up happening is that then all of us are kind of sort of very involved and engaged with our own little community, right? And then nobody seems to think about what's happening in the neighborhood, in the society, in the city, and how do we engage with each other, right? And some of that has happened because there's so much, how rapidly we've diversified, right, in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley. Almost every week we have newcomers come from a different county, a different city, a different state, country, etc. And then obviously the natural human instinct is to look for people of our kind, or people who believe in the same things that we believe, or we work together, or we live together. It's any one community, right? That natural tendency of any human is to kind of find that immediate connection. And then we just stay there.
Yeah.
So it's always surprising to me when I am talking to, but what's also surprising is when you do present the common threads between any two or three or different more cultures, people immediately get it,
Yeah.
right? You
Right.
don't have to explain it. So when on stage I'm presenting, let's say, a rhythm from Indian folk and rhythms from Mexican folk, and they see the artists kind of dance to each other's tune, literally,
Mm-hmm.
people are able to just accept it and rejoice in it right
Right.
away,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that is what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Both ends of the surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of like the way it's because it's, even community, the root of that is common, right? I mean, it's like, so you
Mhm.
have some communities built because there's something in common. But yeah, the negative side is that you get isolated and the tendency for humans to think of different as that other kind of
Mhm.
thing, right? So it's great that you're bringing different kind of groups together over the commonality of art and expression and then building and taking away that barrier of the other is bad, but the other could be different and celebrating that. I think that's kind of like the goal of Mosaic America, right?
That is the goal. That's exactly the goal. And the way we've chosen to do it is to co-create. Like, so we have
Yeah.
many events where people will say, and here comes,
Yeah. Yeah.
something from some other country. And
Yeah.
we kind of choose to call it global or international without actually thinking that these are our neighbors, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
our neighbors practicing their rituals and traditions in our own backyard,
Yeah.
right? And it's not international. We're all here in America.
Right. Yeah. This is America. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it and it's very subtle, very nuanced, but that is where we're kind of different from any other event that you might go to, is because what we then do is we invite these many different cultures and communities to co-create the
Yeah.
event with us.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
And
cool.
that all start, yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
that kind of makes me think of the difference between like if you go to almost like a buffet bar where there's different types
Hmm.
of foods versus if you go to a restaurant that's fusion, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like taking the different influences of the different culture and putting it together. Like for me, like I'm Mexican and American, like a half breed,
Hmm.
white and Mexican. And so I would have like bologna burritos, right? Taking white culture and my Hispanic culture and put them together without even thinking about it, but it created something new and different. So in some ways you're I guess with the collaboration of the organizations, do you think it's kind of a fusion or it's still, or is that more of
I
like the
wouldn't call it
empowering part of it?
Yes, I wouldn't call it fusion because we're
Yeah.
not really creating a third anything.
Yeah.
When one entity comes together, co-creates with the second,
Mm-hmm.
we are creating one and two, but together,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So what we want to represent is a vision of an America that's perhaps not been represented before.
Mm-hmm.
And given this, how distributed all of us are, especially in this area, I think it's important for people to kind of see all of our own neighbors practicing their own traditions
Yeah.
out in the open in one campus, right?
Yeah.
So if you take the festival as an example, across a 2-day period, you're going to see 112 organizations
Wow.
coming together either to vend or visual art exhibit or live shows, or it's mindfulness rituals, it's food, all of that, right? And workshops where you can learn an art craft or a tradition for free,
Yeah.
right? And so that a huge part of our programming is that you cannot build community if you say only those who can afford $10 or $100 can
Right.
come and make up the society.
Yeah.
So almost very early on, we kind of decided that all of our events are going to be free because our goal was not to present art, but it was to present a vision of how we could belong and be with each other,
Yeah.
right? And I think that and I'm kind of going a little off topic here. I feel like we've all kind of become so embroiled with individualism, right? We've
Right.
sort of forgotten, ask not what the country can do for you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Ask what you can do for the country. And I would not say country at this point. I would just say, your own immediate neighborhood and society. It's all very good for each of us to be individualistic, but then we do have to, and that's where I'm fascinated by the the definition of America being a self-determining society.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have to ask ourselves that, what are we doing to determine our future? So
Yeah.
in the ways that count, I believe that Mosaic America presents a shared future, or a platform to create a shared future
Awesome.
that we all have to participate in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because
That's
otherwise,
great.
people,
Yeah.
we're going to be taken over by things that will evolve into society we don't want our kids to grow up in, or we don't want to grow old in.
Yeah.
Right. So it's time for enough of us to kind of stand up and take a stance on how we want our future to be.
Yeah. Now, of course, you came to America. I imagine were you born here in the United States, or
No, I came in 1999.
99? And was that for school or for career or for love, or what was the
Oh, it was to change the world, Daniel.
Good, awesome.
I joined this technology startup.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I still remember that interview, and that's how it was. Like, for people who were not in the US, not in Silicon Valley, and I studied computer science.
Yeah.
And so information technology, I was just starting out my career in information technology, and Silicon Valley was taking off
Right.
at that time, and this was the place to be. So I came here seeking career build. It was not just career building. You really, I believed that we could. I was also very young, early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Not quite gotten over the idealism of youth.
Yeah.
And I truly believed that the startup culture, and information technology and all of the advances that were happening would truly change the world. And they have.
Yeah.
Right. Today we have an electric car, and we are
Yeah.
sending the common man to the moon.
Right. Yeah.
So, absolutely. I wouldn't, at no point in my life have I been happy to just do something because because everybody was doing it.
Sure.
It had to be deeply it had to be
Purpose.
impacting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so then when you look at coming over in your 20s and then coming into the United States, what was you see, I guess, because what we were talking about earlier is just the individualness of the American ethos, right? The kind of like my rights over community. I imagine was that something that stands out to you that you had noticed? And it sounds like that's kind of running through Mosaic America, is kind of like recognizing that and trying to help break that down. Is that part of this?
Yes, I think so. And we've not necessarily broken it down that far. And, part of this conversation is helping me kind of assess how much of that is driving our mission and goals. But it's definitely there, because we do need to, each of us. And that's definitely what I noticed. The first thing I noticed about America when I moved from India was the lack of poetry.
Oh.
Everything was just black and white. And I'm like, what's happened to, all of the things in between?
Yeah.
Where is all of that? Where are all of the things that are unsaid, right? That are felt, that are unspoken, that speak volumes, right? And what has happened to let me take care of you? Where is that sentiment?
Yeah.
So it was a vast chasm, between how I spent the first 23 years of my life and coming to but at the same time, growing up in as old a civilization as in India, there are rules, right? And there are rules to society, how you would behave with a neighbor versus an peer versus a
superior or something like that.
A superior, an older person, an elder person, right. All of those kind of rules but duty is very, very ingrained in everyday life, right? So when you encounter a young person, it's almost like it is your duty to kind of help them out, right?
Yeah.
And here, when you come here, there's a sense of anonymity and freedom that I completely instinctively embraced. Because I said, now I get to see who I am.
Right.
Without the connections to the society and all of the trimmings of society.
Yeah.
Who am I? And it was literally peeling back of the onion. And I'm sure every immigrant sort of goes through this process, right? It's a very special kind of loneliness, I like to say,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you're kind of stripped bare, right? All of the things that you held dear are no longer accessible.
Yeah.
All of the definitions that you have kind of propped up are no longer accessible, and you're left with I, me, and myself, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's a very, very interesting thing. And one of the first things I realized was that I was afraid to be my giant self.
Was it because was it because of the being in an environment that was unknown? So there's kind of like a little bit of insecurity that comes with that, or was it because you came from a culture that wouldn't allow you to be yourself, or was it a mixture? What would you say?
It was definitely a mixture, but it was very personal as well. Because so I was trained in the classical Indian arts, where you are required to find your own voice within the lexicon and grammar of that particular classical style, right? So you are constantly challenged to kind of figure out what is it that this character is feeling. Why are you positioning your body a certain way? So how you communicate through your body, through your face, through your hands, everything is examined a lot.
Okay.
So I was kind of used to that examining of self and examining of themes and examining of, what do I want to share with the audience? So that was a huge part of me. But early in my life, I had to kind of decide whether to be an artist or whether to get paid.
Yeah. Right.
Every artist kind of has to make that. There's a constant conflict and a refrain in every artist's life, right?
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
I felt very deeply the unfairness of society for not celebrating artists.
Right.
And so the dilution in definition of the self was felt very keenly starting very young, right? Because I felt like the world wants to deal with only the half of me that is practical and thinks with the head.
Yeah.
And the world has no place for my heart.
Right.
And so you kind of get used to closeting, part of yourself from very early on. And when I got to the US is when it took me a few years, but I realized that person who is closeted really needed to come out.
Right.
And then I was left with, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you're saying that, because if I think of especially a lot of different cultures in India, just there seems to be, there's rich art in the culture, right? So it's interesting, but do you think that's more of a, so what is the practicality, like the dualism that you've kind of felt like, your artistic expression self felt like it couldn't go, and it was just more the practical.
How do I support myself?
Yeah,
it was the question.
Yeah, it was more of, yeah. Just that the practical
it was a
of how to make
commercial.
money.
It's not. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, you do have to support yourself, and there still aren't. I mean, I think that artists are still not like teachers, right? Are still underpaid.
Yeah.
Don't get market rate, and so it became quite a thing for me to find a way to, it's like a very, very personal mission for me that I don't want a single artist to have to do without.
Right.
And I don't want a single person to have to give up any part of themselves.
Yeah. Awesome.
To be considered a person. And now when you kind of extend that to Mosaic America, we believe that nobody in America has to shed any part of their history, identity, or culture to be American. Right. So it's kind of flying in the face of the whole melting pot. We're like, no, you don't have to be anybody different.
Yeah.
This country has the wherewithal and the power and the grace and elegance to let you be who you are, if only enough of us stood up and said, this is the future we want for ourselves.
Yeah. I think it has I just think of my own family experience. It was both, it was like a somewhat of an American, it's hard to even say what the American culture was, but definitely like the family gatherings and the food and everything was very much still Mexican, do you know? But we still moved and lived within this country as well. So I think there's space for both,
Yes. And
yeah.
I have a cute little something to offer to our listeners here,
Yeah.
exactly, kind of, it's a great segue from what you said. So, so like you said, right, when family and friends get together, for any one of us, right, is of a certain hue, let's call it that way, of
Yeah.
certain flavor,
Yeah.
right? And then we turn on the radio, say, or we go out into the street, and then you're almost like a different person, right? And so we all have secret lives, right?
Yeah.
And so if I took a sliver of it and I said, we all have secret dancing lives. So you talk to any Indian American, most of our gatherings
Mm-hmm.
are to Bollywood music,
Yeah.
or music that is Indian in origin, right?
Yeah.
And I said, and any dance party nowadays, the chances is that people are dancing to, when friends and family get together among Indian Americans, the chances are that they're dancing to Bollywood music. And I said, so, and that is the case
Mm-hmm.
for Colombian origin, for Mexican origin,
Yeah.
for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what if we got the secret dancing lives of people who live here in Silicon Valley out in the open and shared
Yeah.
it with
Yeah.
everybody?
Yeah.
And so Friday 26th at our festival, that is what the block party is
That's
about.
cool. Yeah.
All of these, culturally rooted music, danceable rhythms,
Yeah.
right? So we have Iranian pop, we have
Awesome.
hip hop,
Yeah.
we have Bollywood, we have belly dancing,
Awesome.
we might even have Brazilian capoeira, and then we might even have the street style from San Jose.
Yeah.
Yeah. As part of because I want, all of our secret lives to be shared now, because, in that campus on those 2 days, it is a safe place to do so.
Yeah. 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 It is. Yeah. Yeah. It is too bad that people have always kind of thought of it as it's a secret side of them,
Yeah.
So I think it's great that we're able to celebrate the different cultures that are here living within this country, and that can be done openly. I think it's great, and Mosaic does a great job with that. Now you talked about this kind of two sides of you, kind of like the artistic side and then the practical side. So you grew up, I guess, learning dance. Is that kind of the thing? But also I see that you sing and also play like Hawaiian style slide guitar. So to talk about your own art and creative experiences. How did you start? How did that come about?
Yeah. So at age 8 is when my mom decided that I needed to learn dancing. Right. And I think at age 10, I kind of said, I'm done with it. And she's like, no, you're not. And
yeah.
But, it just is and was such an integral part of me. And the amazing part about, dancing and art in general, maybe, is that even as you're performing, you're learning. Right. You have to stay open to not only to ideas, but to where your heart and soul take you, right? So you have to be kind of open. And so kind of going back to my giant self, and how I was afraid is, so I'm here now in this country, and I'll come back to my childhood again, but I'm here now in this country, given a chance to actually, because I'm grown up now and I'm supporting myself. And I had a chance to kind of revisit that 16-year-old self who had to give up being a performer or having dance as a career path, right? And so what am I going to do with that? Anyway, but going back to childhood, dancing and performing, a huge, huge part of my life from age 8 to 21.
Okay.
Literally, I would be on a train, with the rest of my company that I was with at that time. It's called Upasana Dance Company. A shout out to my teacher, Jai Sri Nair, in Bombay. And we would be on a train, hitting city after city, kind of, performing. And it was such a great teaching way of life, right? And so along the path, because dance kind of goes hand in hand with music, I started to take vocal lessons in the Southern Carnatic style. But by then I was already, I think my DNA had molded itself to being a dancer and a very expressive sort of dancer. And so the technicalities of South Indian classical music weren't appreciated by the rebel nature that I had at that time. So while I appreciated today in a completely different sense. I, at that time, decided to not pursue it.
Mm.
But I do have some training in it.
Yeah.
And Hawaiian slide guitar, my brother and I would perform.
Oh,
So we were
okay.
like a little, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. All the triple threat there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we would go to annual functions and gatherings, like in different apartment complexes or organizations doing their annual thing, and then we would be invited. Praveen and Priya will now present Bollywood tunes in the Hawaiian slide guitar. So
Oh,
way
cool.
back when, I think that was the seed of I was thinking about the Hawaiian slide guitar. How did it come to India? And then the violin is used a lot in Indian classical scene.
Mm.
And I'm like, the violin is not even indigenous to India. It was
Right.
brought to India. And then, I mean, it was so right there. And, growing up in Bombay, within a 1 mile radius, you're likely to encounter 20 different languages
Right. Yeah.
with the associated food and culture, maybe 3 or 4 different religions,
Yeah.
right? With the associated food and culture and
Right.
observances,
Yeah.
right? And so it was very, very
Diverse.
rich,
Yeah.
upbringing, right? And that is basically the seed for all of that is getting manifested now in how we program for Mosaic America events, right?
Yeah.
That is the ethos. And it feels like, if there are societies in this world who believe and thrive on pluralism, there is no reason why the most developed nation in this country cannot do the same. And
Yeah.
all it needs is for enough. So, we are all sort of coached and educated in thinking of ourselves as belonging to a label, right?
Yeah.
And we just have to kind of think back a little bit and stop ourselves from using those labels too many times and just say, hey, I want to co-create my future with my neighbors.
Yeah.
And how am I going to do that? And we are in Silicon Valley, it's the most innovative corner of the world. So we might as well, innovate society and reaffirm humanity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's cool. Now, do you still dance, sing, or play guitar, or are you still involved in that a little bit, or?
Not the guitar, the dance, yes, but I don't perform anymore. Simply because your heart, mind, soul have to be, completely into performing any art form if you're a performer.
Yeah.
And so now my stage is Mosaic America. My canvas is Mosaic America. The bells on my feet are the music of Mosaic America, and so
I like
on.
that. That's it. The bells on your feet. That's cool. I like that. Yeah. That's cool.
Oh, I can get very poetic.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So then now, how did you come to be a part of Mosaic America? Because you were working, I guess, in tech somehow, and actually you just recently retired from kind of tech America, corporate America. I don't know what you want to call it, or quit your job
Yes.
to be full-time with Mosaic America. Tell us a little bit of the journey of how you helped co-found it. How did that come about? And then how did it come about to, you said, I'm resigning? Give us a little journey of that.
Yes. Oh, yes. It was full of drama. Let me put it that
Awesome.
way, right? So back in 2015, I was interviewing. So I've been an arts columnist and critic.
Oh yeah, that's right.
For the longest time, most of it was with a South Asian magazine called India Currents.
Yeah.
And so I have had like a 6-7 year career in writing a regular arts column for India Currents, right? And in that phase of life, I got to interview artists and present their vision. Right. I think that in that 5 or 6 years, I got really good at, transcribing, communicating a vision, like that which has not been put in words before. Right.
So you're saying like helping the artist even articulate what they were saying and communicating that to others? Yeah. Yeah.
Communicate that to others, and then watching a dance performance or listening to music, and then how do you make your readers A, appreciate it, and B, want it?
Yeah. Awesome.
Right. And I see that as being different from, I'm not trying to sell anybody's, but I take it very seriously to be able to share somebody's vision
Mm-hmm.
and be authentic to that vision
Yeah.
is very important to me,
Yeah.
right? You can't kind of take off and pivot and do your own pivots on somebody else's vision,
Right.
right? So I think that I realized that I enjoyed that a lot. And that has some bearing on what happened later, right? So in the course of my interviewing artists and people associated with the arts, I was asked to interview Usha Srinivasan,
Mm.
who was the then president of Sangam Arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was presenting Cambodian classical art and Indian classical art for the first time on a stage. And in talking with her, and we took a lot of time with each other, right? Because we
Mm-hmm.
kind of sort of dated in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Sure.
Because she was at a point where she could do with a partner, and I was at a point where I could do with a larger canvas. And I immediately saw that sometimes when you're going about your life, and then something makes you pause, and something tells you this is where to be. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to her, I guess. Right?
So then
Because
you met Usha through interviewing her, and a
yes,
friendship and it started to develop.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
and
Yeah.
more importantly, there was a commonality of vision
Mm.
of what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I still remember when we were listening to. No, this is in 2015, and we were just uh, talking and about what next to do, this, that, and the other. And she kind of said, what we do at Sangam Arts, we bring all of the Indian arts together on one platform. I wish if there was a way to do that with all other cultures. And I'm
Mm.
like, of course there is, and this is how to do it, right? So
Yeah.
it just, and it's not like I was you know developing the idea secretly or anything. I
Right.
just knew it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? I just knew it, and it just came forth from me,
Yeah.
right? And 9 weeks later, we had Mosaic America, our first show.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Talk about
yeah.
synergy. Yeah. 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 That's cool.
Yeah,
Well, it's
yeah,
funny
yeah.
that you mentioned that because yeah. So and I can see that, like what you describe, because especially content is like that same vision you talk about when you were writing, like how we showcase the artists and the organizations and what they're doing, and then now, right? Even though now maybe you aren't interviewing them, you're giving them this actual practical platform to demonstrate and to showcase what they're doing. So yeah, I see that thread continuing, right?
Yeah, and I think that all of that, like the approach at Mosaic America is very much, you tell me what's the best way to represent
Mm,
you.
yeah.
Rather than saying you have 5 minutes,
Right.
you can only, you get one spotlight, and you have to wear black because our stage is too colorful or whatever. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
There are no such impositions placed
Yeah.
uh, on any one culture, and we are very, very careful, and that we want them to co-create
Yeah.
a vision with us, right?
Yeah.
And so that's definitely the foundational, that is the foundation of how we approach. And so therefore then it becomes that much easier to build community, right? Because we're taking
Yes.
all of the roadblocks and preconceived notions. Like frequently people will tell me, how much time do you have? I'm like, you tell me.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much time do you want, right? And then then you start that conversation from that place of honesty, right? And
Yeah.
then talking of place, for me, placemaking starts with space making. You have to
Mm,
make space,
mm.
right? For everybody that you want on your canvas or on your platform. And you can't, and I feel like not too many of us are invested in Silicon Valley. Yes, we see it as a place of opportunity. We see it as a place of diversity. We see it a place of, this will do for now, but maybe I'll
Sure.
settle down and retire somewhere else, right? There's
Mm.
not much investment going on from people into the place, into San Jose, for example,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
is why it's kind of important. Like, so last year, because of our 5 years of work, we were able to present back to the community a an engagement with 25, 30 different cultures, right? So it was kind of like, uh, we said, hey, we've met with some of you, and not all of you have met each other, and this is how we look when we stand together, right? And so this year, because of our work between the last festival and this festival, we've kind of been able to bring together 40 different cultures across 112 different groups, which we will present back to the community across 2 days, August 26th and 27th. And I don't know if I said this before, but we feel very, very strongly that because of the lack of investment that many of us have in where we live is why we don't feel at home or that we belong to place. And so placemaking, we strongly believe, A, that it's a need of the hour, and but B, that placemaking has to start with space making, right? We have to make space for our neighbor in our lives, right? And make place for place in our lives, right? And so what are we going to do with all of our individual energies, right? And where will this collective energy then take us? And what kind of future are we able to create for ourselves? And, like so many of us say Silicon Valley is an innovative place. It's not just about technology. This is our
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for all of us to come together and say how to innovate society, right? This
Yeah.
is the blueprint that the whole world kind of looks up and holds up America as a shining example of what can happen when humans get together. Let's
Yeah.
show them, right?
Yeah. Awesome.
uh,
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool. Now, so you recently resigned from tell us about that. So what was it about this timing that you said, you know what, I'm gonna jump off, I'm gonna go full time Mosaic, and
Yeah, so
what was
I've tried to do this a couple times in my life, right? That
mm,
I said, you know what, I want to be my giant self,
yeah.
and I don't want to be my diluted self anymore, and I just want to be who I am, and tried quitting. But
Mm,
either for practical reasons, like commercial reasons, not enough
yeah.
money,
Yeah.
or I realized that hey, I need to do a little more homework on who I want to be, what I want to do, and how I want to manifest
Yeah.
uh, you know my vision, right? Exactly what do I want to do. I realized that I needed to do a lot more homework. So what I did was I was I stuck with startups for about 10, 15 years, and I
Mm,
had kind of reached the vice president level, and I said, you know what, I can't be doing homework on myself if I'm also to kind of be at that level. So I really kind of pivoted, and I said, you know what, I'm going to start back at the basic rungs of the ladder, and
mm,
taught myself project management.
mm,
uh, and I said, let me get closer to the ground, because to me, literally, metaphorically, that is what I needed to do, kind of touch base with my roots again.
yeah.
And so I did that with my career as well. I started at the bottom, and for 5 years I took the time to stay close to the ground, stay close to myself. And of course, Mosaic was still going on, right, at
Right.
that
Yeah.
time. And because of the unique nature of our model, where we work really hard to raise enough funds so that we can make all of our programming available for free, it
Yeah.
really does puts a lot of pressure on the co-founders, right,
Yeah.
to talk the talk, walk the walk, and be out there and present our case, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And so all of that was going on, and then when the pandemic hit, we pivoted to online programming. But at the same time, the world had changed, and our programming became even more relevant than
Mm,
before, because of the situation that our nation found itself in, right, with
right.
BLM, with an increased awareness of between the have that there are haves and have nots, right,
Right.
in a very different lens and perspective. And so we felt everybody in our team felt there was suddenly it was no longer a futuristic vision that we were presenting. It felt like the need
Mm,
of the hour, right? it
yeah.
felt it felt urgent, that we couldn't lose any time. So as opposed to many organizations that disbanded, we just upped everything, right? We
Yeah.
completely upped our investment back into the organization. We said, there's not a single second to lose. So in that rush, and I was holding down a day job also, Uh, 4 months ago, I came down with COVID, and it took me 2 months to
Hmm.
recover.
Oh, wow.
Right? I was not actively infectious or anything, but it just completely had me down for 2 months. And then, of course,
Wow.
a lot of self reflection. And I said, you know what, this is happening because I'm constantly at conflict, because I am doing a job that is diluting me at the same time, but that which keeps me alive does not pay me, and that conflict enough,
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't pay me enough, and that conflict was what was eating away at me and just rotting. And I am proud to say that I'll turn 50 this year. And I said, for me, numbers, I think, are a thing.
Hmm.
So I said, you
Hmm.
know what, if I can't do this at 50, when else can I do? Right?
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
given enough, to the world. I need
Right.
to
Yeah.
now own my life. And I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And it couldn't have
Yeah.
come at a better time for Mosaic, because we're not tiny anymore, and we've sort of outgrown our original sources of funding. And it
Hmm.
really will take Usha and I to kind of go on the road again, so to speak, to be
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
access more funding. Because now, I think that everybody, in some senses, what the pandemic and the BLM movement did was brought all of us in one moment to the same page on where we are as a nation, as a society, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in some ways, doing what we do has resonates with the givers, right? Sponsors, funders, grantors, even individual donors, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But in some senses, it has also kind of put the focus back on what's called third world needs, right? I mean, or first world needs. Well, the first order of needs, let me put it that way,
Hmm.
like hunger, and, all of that has also kind of, so we're always sort of competing, right? And our kind of activism is not like, a one
Right.
shot activism, right? It is a long, sustained
Yeah.
movement.
Cultural change. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the way we've chosen to do it is also, co-creation. And we will go at the pace of that smallest community that is still trying to find its place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're
That's
happy to
awesome.
do it, and that's the only way to do it. So,
Yeah. That's cool. I'm excited for you. It's cool to see just, you felt that. I mean, I don't think anybody really makes a change, right, until they see the necessity. They see or either it's the great opportunity or the tension, or so it's kind of cool to see those kind of things coming together with not only your own personal life, organization, and society, and then now that you're, all in. I mean, you're always
yes,
all in for Mosaic, but even more so now. So
even more
that's
so
cool.
now. Yes,
So
yes.
then, when you say, how would you then describe if you had to like draw a word picture of Priya's giant self, what does that look like?
Um, Definitely passionate,
Hmm.
definitely compassionate, definitely change maker,
Hmm.
um, patient, and angry.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh,
Wow, that's
yeah.
like it's fun to see the dichotomy or the almost paradox of like the anger with compassion, but yeah, passion. Yeah. Anyway, so explain those again, or keep going. I shouldn't have interrupted you.
No, no, I want to stop at angry, because that was a revelation. In one of your interviews in the past, you kind of asked, "What have you learned about yourself?" Right? And there were two things that I learned about myself in the last 5 years.
Hmm.
One was, I'm part of the SV Creates Mindshare cohort. I
Right.
forget the exact year I was in, but Alyssa Burkett, a shout out to her. She
Yeah.
was the consultant that was leading our cohort, and she made us do a Myers Briggs psychology assessment
Yeah.
of ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And
Personality assessment. Yeah.
surprisingly, turns out I'm 17 points introvert and 16 points extrovert. So by 1 point,
Oh.
I am an introvert. And that
Yeah. Yeah.
explained a lot of the things about
Hmm.
me. Like, I'm not shy, but I'm quiet.
Hmm.
I choose to be private. I choose my friends carefully. I cannot tolerate people who don't think before they talk. things of that
Hmm.
nature, you know. How,
Yeah.
like I would always think, you know, how can I be compassionate if I simply cannot tolerate some people?
Yeah. Yeah.
So somehow knowing that, you know, there is that, and so 16 and 17, there's not, I mean, there's, I'm equal parts of both, right?
Yeah.
Except for one part of me is quieter. And the anger part is what I realized is that I have to be angry about something to want to change it.
Ah,
And I
sure.
really cannot, if I can do something about it, I stop worrying about it, right? But if I
Ah.
can do something about it, like, you know, frequently I'll tell people who are frustrated with the state of affairs, right?
Hmm.
All around them, for whatever personal reasons, within the family, within the work, etc., etc. What is the solution that you think? What will solve this problem,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I do to myself. I said, can you do something about it? So if I say no, then I said let it go. And
Hmm.
B, if you can do something about it, what can you do about it? And then it doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether it takes you a minute, an hour, 5 years, 20 years, 25 years. So I've kind of learned to
Yeah.
kind of channel my anger into impactful, long ranging action. um,
Yeah.
so and I think that that's what also, and I kind of let it out in sports, right, to kind of just pace myself and kind of remind myself, why am I doing this, right? So Mosaic America in some senses, you know, is a beautiful manifestation of that change making
Hmm.
instinct and need in me, right? Because I can
Yeah.
see the immediate and the not so immediate fruits that it will bear. And
Yeah.
it's a wonderful journey. It's not easy, and we're kind of configuring and figuring out a lot of things as we're going along. But
Yeah.
so far, and you know, we were very, 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 very conscious and humbled by the fact that we are doing the work we can, because there have been others, individuals and organizations who have done X, Y, and Z before we got
Yeah.
on the scene, right? We're
Totally.
very conscious
Yeah.
about that. So, which is why
Yeah. Well,
history is
yeah.
a lot, you know, accounts for a lot of our programming. You know, it's informed by history. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, no, that's great. I was just going to comment on that. I heard a story one time was talking about, people making change, and that it's like a marathon baton race,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
There's people who handed it to you, and then you're going to hand it to someone else, and without that kind of, but then your particular run in the race is very valuable too. So, not that you don't recognize and admire those behind you, you also take the responsibility of your own role and also see that you too have to pass on. So I hear that in what you're saying. Is that kind of what you were
May I
saying
say
there?
something? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Please say
I
something.
feel so. Here's what I feel Mosaic America is doing. We're changing the race a bit, right?
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah.
no, I'll tell you why. Because not only are we passing, yes, there will be a point. There is a passing on of batons, right? We're taking on and we're giving off, but at the same time, we are holding out the baton for all of our
Hmm.
the cultures to kind of hold on to, right? It's out there.
Yeah.
Just come and hold the baton, and let's all make it to the finish line, right? So in
Yeah.
that sense, the race has changed. And you know, one of the things that we
Yeah.
still
It's cool.
feel very strongly about is the nature of giving and collaboration, just everywhere in the world, right, is somewhat skewed in the sense that there is always a needy party and there is always a giving party, right? So
Sure.
even when you talk
Yeah.
about grants that are given to the arts, or you know, underrepresented communities, it's
Right.
almost as
Yeah.
if this
Yeah.
community can only get funds if you're underrepresented, if you're in need,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And what we're
Yeah.
saying is, hey, this community is made up of people made that with an entire cultures, traditions behind them. They are
Mm-hmm.
not without assets. They are not
Right.
without giving of their own.
Right.
It's just that the rest of the world hasn't made space for them, right?
Right.
So in that sense,
Yeah.
we're kind of changing the way we're kind of systemically changing the system, you know,
Yeah.
with a
Awesome.
different lens, right? We want for all of us to be looking just with the different lens, kind of going back to my label making, right? That all of us kind of perceive ourselves to be under a specific label, and we're like, no,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we welcome all the labels in some senses, right? So basically, that baton is we're sharing the baton, with
Yeah.
everybody, with the community, right?
Yeah.
And we're encouraging, hopefully inspiring everybody to kind of show up and come with us to wherever this journey takes us, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I like that. It's in some ways, it's almost like, using that analogy of just it's almost like you're receiving one and then passing it out to more
yes,
people to run the race. So yeah, that's cool. You also made me think of something else. I was thinking about that one because at first it caught me off guard and you mentioned anger. And then I just started really to think of that, it's kind of interesting that even that word is so always seen negatively, right? I thought at my first blush but I really think about it is that it doesn't have to be, it's the action, right,
yes,
from that emotion that is either positive or negative or growth or hindrance, right? So what I hear you saying is that there's things that you see that need to be solved and need addressed, and then now you're going to focus your energy. So I just wanted to kind of, because I was kind of upset myself of seeing that as negative. Wait a second, I even know it's not like that.
no,
That's
I'll tell you
like
why
passion
though. Yeah,
and zeal, right? Zeal and
yes,
even jealousy are all actually things that stir up in our emotions to bring awareness of like something. Action needs to be taken in a compassionate
yes.
and humble way. Yeah. So
Look
awesome.
at that. Yes, absolutely. It's all energy, Hate
Yeah,
is energy. And then what are you
totally.
going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I just feel I sometimes joke with my friends that, the thing that's happening between Israel and Palestine for so many generations, I'm the kind of person who can totally see the dots being connected between that conflict and me as an individual, because I feel like if
Mm,
I need to do my part. I need to do my part, right?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
I think
Awesome.
that it's part of, just one last point, about anger, right? People use
Yeah.
it synonymously with rage,
Right.
and
Yeah.
rage is something that will burn you up and everybody around you. But
Yeah.
a paced anger, you have to continue to stay angry. At least for me, that's how I work, right? I
Yeah.
have to feel passionate about making a change, and for me, I have to be angry about the unfairness of something,
Right.
or
Yeah.
the lack of something, or neglect or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Cool. Well, stay angry.
I like that.
and rageless. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes.
Cool. Well, Priya, thank you so much. I appreciate this conversation and what you guys are doing with Mosaic America. And once again, that's going to be August 26th and 27th at the Mexican Heritage Plaza, School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza,
They
right?
are
Is that
actually our partners, so yes,
yeah.
in
Yeah.
partnership with
Cool.
the School of Arts and Culture. Yes.
Awesome. And then again, you said how many different organizations and how many different presentations?
So
I lost the
112,
numbers.
yeah, 112 groups comprising 50 vendor and organization, like nonprofit organizations, 6 food trucks, 12 or 13 visual art exhibitors, 20 performing arts or culture bearer groups, 16 workshops, 6 theater shows. It's just
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's cool. And then just real quick from the last one that you did last year, what percentage increase is this? Is it doubled? Is it tripled? Is it
it's
what?
triple, because last year we had
Tripled. Wow.
6 hours. This year it's let's see, 8 plus 4, but it's also multiple stages, so it's
Wow.
definitely more than triple. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Congratulations. That's really great. And so we have to let you go because I'm sure there's tons of emails that you have to send to make sure that the food trucks are coming at the right time. But yeah, thank you for your time.
You
Thank
have
you
to
for what
promise
you're
to
doing.
come to the
Yeah,
festival.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm definitely going to come by. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Then I shall
So,
let you go too.
yeah. Yeah. So awesome. So thank you very much. And I'm sure if I don't see you before, I'll definitely see you on the 26th or the 27th. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Priya. Yeah.
Thanks
We'll
so
talk to you
much,
later.
Daniel. And best of
Okay.
luck I love your vision of what content is and what you want it to be. And I love the word cultivate. I love
Yeah,
that you focus
thanks.
on the individual, because, like you said, it starts with the
Yeah,
individual. I love it.
that's
I love
right.
it. I love what
Behind
you're doing.
everything is a person. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Priya. We'll talk to you later.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Make sure to attend the Mosaic Festival of Silicon Valley on August 26th and the 27th at the School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza. To find out more about Mosaic America and their events, and also to contribute to their nonprofit organization, go to their website, mosaicamerica.org, and also on their Instagram, Mosaic America. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the South Bay's creatives. This episode's music is 408 by Jack Pavlina. Follow him on Spotify and also on his Instagram at Jack Pavlina Music.